you feel young. I appreciate that. But speaking of real, recognized real, what do you guys think you did right as Naughty by Nature in terms of entering the business that ended up working out for you so well 30 years after 1993, your sophomore album?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, for us, we've stood on the shoulders of those who came before us, right? So, namely, Run DMC. We were blessed enough to tour with Run DMC when Run DMC was coming back after, dismantling a bit. They're down with the King album. Naughty was so hot, we had Run DMC tour with us. And I remember this picture stays in my head. Back then, we were riding limos. So imagine the three of us, Naughty by Nature, lined up, and the three of Run DMC lined up, and we're all riding together. But they were our heroes, And, besides that, we were signed to Tommy Boy Records, and Queen Latifah, we were signed to our queen. Give it up to Queen Latifah, please. And Shakim from Flavor Unit, and we were signed to Tommy Boy Records, but we stood on the shoulders of Soul Sonic Force, the Force MDs, Digital Underground, Coolio, all of those great artists, De La Soul, rest in peace, Dave, give it up to Dave. I think today was his birthday. So not only did we stand on the shoulders of their mistakes, we had great attorneys, we had great management, and our deals were structured different. So much so that, we never signed directly to Tommy Boy Records, and because of Mark the 45 King and Flavor Unit, we signed to their distributor, which was Warner Brothers Records. And thanks to Benny Medina, who was managing Will Smith at the time, and if you guys realize an episode of Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, you saw Will Smith dancing to the OPP song. Well, it was all political because his manager signed us to Warner Brothers Records. The project got passed down to Tommy Boy, and it was all family. So our deal structure, our album budgets, our publishing, everything was on point. And we definitely had our attorney, Stu Levy, who's here in Manhattan, and we've had him since the New Style 80s. You talk about relationships. Stu Levy is not only our attorney till this day, he's still representing Queen Latifah and Shakim at Flavor Unit,
I love that story too, because so often, and one of the things we wanted to focus on, and one of the reasons I like this event is that it wasn't us getting up here to try to pontificate on how we can solve all the problems and speak to the dumb shit Kanye said on Drink Champs. It's to have conversations about real experiences.
Yeah.
And so it's interesting hearing for you, Vin, just someone, a black artist, who had an experience with your Jewish attorney and many others in the business where you don't look at your experience in the industry as being one that was negative or where you were taken advantage of.
Right, and I could tell you, one of my most prized and one of our biggest investments that once we did sign with Warner Brothers and we locked in with Benny Medina, his accountant was a guy, Larry Mylove, and bless his soul, he was our first accountant. And Larry Mylove introduced us to REITs, Real Estate Investment Trust. And it's not the big corporate ones you see today. We learned this in '93. This is why I'm able to sit here comfortably today. We learned in '93 that he introduced us to the Jewish community, and we saw that there were families of people who, at the time in San Diego, there were Navy barracks, old Navy barracks that were abandoned. They would go and pool their money together, buy these barracks, turn them into affordable housing. And when we made our first big money, we did not run to the jewelry guy or the auto guy. We didn't even buy homes. We invested in those REITs. And we became property owners, and we started earning passive income at 22, 23 years old. And over the time, those REITs have scaled and scaled and scaled. And besides our publishing and besides all of our intellectual properties, our music royalties and IP, that real estate and those REITs are part of our portfolio till this day.
Yeah.
I wish I had met your accountant when I was 22 years old, instead of being the only Jew who never invested in anything. Benny, listen, you're not a spring chicken in this game. Y'all have been going after it for a minute. You're the youngest, of course, of Griselda. Don't ever let Gun and Con forget it. But you guys were at it for a long time, and you managed to navigate the game as it changed. Like, y'all were in the blog era, you guys were already starting to build and put it together, but then by the time it ended up popping for you guys, we were in the streaming era. It was already a totally different time. How did you guys know how to, or figure out how to sort of change with the times to now become, let's be honest, Griselda is the standard for underground success in hip hop. How did you guys sort of manage that lane?
Yeah, give it up. Basically by just, like looking at it as a business, and outside of the studio, just knowing the players and not being afraid to learn from people, like guys like Serge. Definitely learned a lot from Steve. Not being afraid to learn and not being afraid to listen. When you meet these people, you get in a business with them, they coach you for a reason, you know what I'm saying? These guys got illustrious careers, man, for a reason. So when you run into these people, it's good to get coached up by these guys, you know what I'm saying? I couldn't be here just by myself. Vinny the Butcher is not Vinny the Butcher, it's a collective of everybody who helped me along the way. And that's one thing about Griselda. You see Wes, even with the clothing, he's running around with Mike and Mary. He moved to Paris just so he can like sit as an apprentice to Mike and Mary. I'm saying we eager to learn, and we learned a lot, and we shared it with each other. So, you know what I'm saying? That being older, I think, helped us. You know what I'm saying? No ego. We older guys, so we were kind of more hungrier than the younger guys, if you ask me. So we was ready to learn.
Swaggy, please.
Because I started in programming at Sirius, so I used to run the boards for Shade 45, and Benny and I were talking about this a little bit. I remember when Griselda used to come in very early, like in their career, and just sit there and rap. And Benny at that time didn't even used to, like, you used to rap, but you didn't even used to rap on the microphone. Like, you just used to be chilling. And what was interesting was, to continue to watch their growth. But one thing that I also commend you guys for doing was like the level and the quality of the merchandise that y'all put out. I think definitely took the Griselda brand to another level. Like, just watching you guys continue to develop that was something that I think not a lot of independent artists were able to do and able to capitalize on. And then, of course, seeing what you all did with Shady Records, creating a partnership with Shady Records. Shout out to Paul Rosenberg, and I think that was dope too.
Well, Swaggy, while you have the mic, I wanted to ask you, being a radio personality and programmer and someone who loves this culture so much, how much from a culture and sort of social standpoint did growing up on hip-hop influence you in terms of your views, the way you see the world, etc.?
For me, hip-hop was like everything. Like, anything that I do up until this moment, I look at it through a lens of hip-hop. Even if it comes down to making a business move, I look at people in the industry, whether it's people like Steve or people like Jay-Z or people like Griselda. There's so many people that I look up to now in the business of hip-hop, from the artists to the executives to people who just continue to grow the culture. So I think literally everything that I do, like when I go outside, I'm rapping hip-hop in my head, like anything.